Hi guys, Toge here with a new video, and this video will be about the most fun specs, classes, tier list in fresh classic World of Warcraft. And why do I start a tier list with most fun? Well, I do think that personally I choose a class based on the fun factor and not only about the performance of that class. First and foremost, you have to level through it with the class, and you have to raid with it, and you have to PvP with it, and you have to do other content with it. So may as well just like the class before you actually think about performances. And if you're thinking about doing min maxing or even getting the best like potential DPS or potential HPS, I still think that it is based on the class itself, so you're not really competing with another warrior if you're a Retribution Paladin. So that's how I see it. Now, again, raid spots, it is most likely also a factor, but I do believe that any normal casual guild will accept pretty much everyone, even just like one Retribution Paladin. Gearing wise it becomes a bit harder, but it is what it is. Now let's start with the few factors I do factor in my tier list. PvP is a huge factor for me. I'm a PvPer. I love PvPing. That's what I do in my off time. That's what I do without raiding. That's what I do whenever I want to rank. That's what I do on retail. What I do on Cataclysm. What I do as well in vanilla. I do PvP at all times. That's my number one factor. Then we have the leveling and the raiding. Is it boring to raid with it? Is it boring to level with it? Is it quite fast to level with it? Is it just enjoyable to play the class? And the third factor is how many specs can actually get me excited about that class, because if it's only one spec, then it becomes very monotone and could be also very annoying to play in the whole duration of classic. And I do think I want to main a class to play from phase 1 to level to phase 6 and to eventually go to TPC. But that's another discussion for TPC. Let's discuss about that. And I have prepared two tier lists for you guys. I have a class tier list and a spec tier list. I will do this together at the same time. And why do I do that? Because I think it's hard to judge Enhancement Shaman, Wind Fury procs, compared to Elemental Shaman, one-hit wonders, for example, or Retribution Paladin with a Holy Paladin. That's two separate specs with two separate playstyles. You cannot really compare. You cannot really say Paladin is A tier without separating those two. So I will try to separate. I will give my explanation on this tier list, and then we're gonna hop on the second tier list. I'm gonna place where I think the specs are for me, and I'm not gonna explain there because I would already explain it on this one. Alright, so let's start right away with Druid. It is my main class, or was my main class in 2019. I really love the aspect of leveling being super fast. I love also the raiding, where you always want druids in your raid, at least one, and you can have two or three. It will be still fine, and you can play tank, you can play DPS, you can play healer, you can be a fantastic flag carrier, you can also be a fantastic duelist, so it's a very good 1v1er. Mana is always an issue, but you can play around it as well. And I think that the whole rotation is not that interesting whenever you're going to balance Druid, but if you're Feral Druid, I think shapeshifting and power shifting is something very interesting. Although I think the farming crowd pummeler is kind of an iffy situation for me. I don't really like it, and that's why I'm not playing Feral Druid in raids. But I do like Feral Druid in general for leveling, for PvP as well. Even though it is a subpar rogue, it can actually function very well. And I kind of actually love the fact that Druid has a bit of everything. So if I think about PvP and with the different specs in mind, overall classification I would give to Druid would be a 8 here. It is a very fun class, but can be felt like a jack of all trades, master of none class, which is kind of the case for Druid. And if you're sometimes you want to be a perfect in something and you cannot be that with Druid, it kind of sucks, except for flanking carrying. If you love doing that in Warsong Gulch, that's something you can do and you're probably the best at. But in anything else like healing, DPS, whatever, you're not really the best. But by having everything combined, it does make the class being very interesting. And then for the specs, where I would put, so we have balance. This is balance Druid, so I'm going to put balance Druid in B tier. Fun wise, I do feel like it is kind of monotone and has mana issues, and leveling is very like slow. That's the issue. PvP wise, it is okay, and so actually great fun. So that's why it's B tier instead of like being C tier. Then you have Feral Druid, which I find it very fun, but I think I do like the crowd plumber farm is taking it a bit down for me. And then I think Resto Druid is actually quite fun. I would say also A tier. I think the only issue is the mana. I don't like to play too much around mana, and in PvP you kind of have to flag carry, and that's kind of something I like. But no, it's not for everyone, and I understand why some people might not like it. Because a lot of the responsibilities are going onto your own shoulders. Now let's talk about Hunter. Hunter is a fantastic class, and there are not a lot of specs that you can play. That's true. It's not very. You don't have a lot of variety, but you can play like a 0-point BM with 31 points in MM, 20 points in survival. You could also play more of a BM Hunter spec with MM, or you have like 15 points in BM, you could have 5 points in survival and then 31 in MM, for example. You can play around it, right? You have builds, and you can play more defensive build. You can play a bit more of a trap build. You can play more of a like again survival build where you have extra control and you can do some great neat stuff as well. You have a lot of like possibilities, which is kind of good and fun as a hunter. What I also like is the rotation in raids is very fun. You have melee weave, you have again auto shot timer that you have to count as well whenever you're going to do a multi shot or whenever you're going to do an aim shot. I really like that aspect, and then being able to melee weave while you're waiting for your auto shot timer is giving you more DPS, and it feels really rewarding. And playing around your dead zone and playing people in PvP is always going to be fun. You can also like win versus any class pretty much. Some classes are a bit harder than others, and again, you can completely destroy rogues. If you're like a dwarf, if you're a dwarf hunter, you're destroying rogues every single time. Whenever they're going to blind you, pop your racial, and then at that point you can literally free yourself from the blind and literally win the game because of that. So I really like that as well. I would say personally that's maybe, again, I don't want to main it, and that's why I said in the previous video like I'm very hesitating about that, because I already made it in 2019 and I even made it in 2004. I don't know if I really want to do it again, but I know it's really a comfy pick, man. Between your pets, it's a lot of fun. Leveling, super comfy. Dungeons, you're feeling like a demigod, while leveling, literally by exploding people. Like, you are going to always top meters at the start, especially in raids. You can, like, phase 1, it's like probably the best phase for you, and then you can actually power level through BWL, and then once you have BWL you kind of fall down a bit like DPS wise, but even then you're still one of the better classes in the game, like overall PvP, PvE, but also in general. If you want to have fun, it is very interactive, so I do like that. And very flavorful, man. Like, between, you have to buy the ammo, it's really sucky at times, but then you feel like, okay, I'm really a hunter, man. Or your pets, you can choose your pets depending on situations. You have your specs that you can decide also. If you want to play like BM, just do that. Or if you want to play MM, you can play MM and still be fine. You can do a hybrid spec. It can be all working for you. So I kind of like that. And yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunities for growth as a hunter between skill level. Like, you can see the difference between a good one and a bad one. So I do like it. So for me, I'm going to put it's a huge S. PvP, very fun. PvE, very interactful. Leveling, very chill, man. And dungeons, again, everyone wants to have a hunter in their group because they know they're going to have an easier time while doing dungeons. The only issue is probably you will see a lot of hunters this time around, because people will finally wake up that classic hunter is actually like one of the best iterations of hunter. So yeah, in PvP, I mean, you can really do some like nasty 1v1, 1v1s and 1v2s with it. And class-wise, I would say easily survival, it feels the most fun. That's true. And I would say MM is maybe A tier with BM. The reason is survival has a wyvern sting, which again is asleep, which can give you a bit more control. And I do, again, don't shoot me, I do like to be very egocentrical whenever I'm playing Hunter, and having that agi boost that you get from the survival tree gives you even more damage. Like potential damage is the highest as survival, I would say, especially for PvE. And in PvP, you can play BM even and like destroy mages, man. Like that's the best feeling ever, that you can actually destroy mages while some warriors are like still rooted till Narnia for it. Like that's something that you can like not describe, in my opinion. So it's a S tier. I would say it like this. I think it's like this. I think it's fair. Mage is actually fantastic, man. PvE, very boring. I'm not gonna lie. Raids, you're going to press frostbolt every single time, every single way. You're going to just do this every single time on just one button. So it doesn't really matter too much. But leveling wise, you have AoE grind. You can actually do some spell cleaves in dungeons, which is also quite fun. I think it's also quite smooth to play, and you have multiple builds that you can play as well. You can also say, look, I don't want to play Frost, you can play Fire. It's a bit slower, but it can be enjoyed with it. But I think the strong point about Mage, and it always has been, is PvP. I think PvP wise, you're using your whole plethora of spells. Like that's why I really like PvP, because you are incentivized to use every single spell in your like spell book. Like you're going to use your Fire Blast, you're going to use your Frostbolt, you're going to use your Nova, you're going to use your Cone of Cold, you're going to use sometimes your Blizzard to get your rogues out of the thing, you're going to use your Arcane Explosions, you're going to use everything, and sometimes you're even going to do a Fireball. You can do whatever you want and you can still do very well. Then you have also your Ice Block if you're Frost Mage. Or you have like your Pump Pyro if you're playing Arcane. You have multiple ways as PvP to be enjoyed as a mage. Now it's not a PvP only video, so obviously it's a big factor for me. But I understand like if some people find PvP a bit less interesting, that they might say like who cares about that, right? But I do think mage is really flavorful. You can also like help your mates with water, with food, and you will never have a problem with that in open world, which is again a flavorful thing to have as a class. And you can teleport as well between like capitals, which is like awesome. Like if you want to go to Stormwind without a problem, you can go to Stormwind. So for me, mage, I would say if I have to count everything, it is B tier. If you think about PvE, like if you're thinking about like raiding and you only want raid, for me it's really a B tier spec. Like it's not that fun. You're going to play Frost Mage till ZG pretty much, and then you go Fire anyway, so you only play Fire as well, and then it becomes a bit more fun. But this is like kind of a phase 1 video. I might do it again once we are ZG or AQ, because I think a lot of stuff does change. But I'm going to put it in A tier because I'm a PvPer, and if I think about a fun class, I think about the PvP possibilities, and I think also leveling wise, Mage is kind of fun. So that's true. Now again, it might change at the end of the tier list. I might change position depending on how many A tiers we have, but we'll have to see. And like spec wise, I would say Frost Mage is probably super fun to play in PvP, but it does get lowered because of the PvE factor of raiding, so I'm going to put it in A tier. And then we have your Fire Mage, which I find actually the most fun spec, like just in general. So like even PvE, once you have like ZG or your like Nax and your how it's called, AQ. But in general, I'm going to keep it in S tier, but I'm going to put it in A tier because I think, you know what, I'm not going to be stupid, right? It's going to be B tier. Why? Because raids, you can't play Fire, so that's something that gets out. You have to respec every single time if you want to raid. You level is very slow, so it's not that interesting. But PvP is really fun. So that's why it's maybe B tier for me. So I'm going to put them there, but in my heart it's S tier, guys. In my heart, at least. And then Arcane Mage, I would say Pompyro, that's the only way you can describe it, is B tier. It's fun for a 2-minute, 3-minute mage, pretty much, but it's not that interesting. Alright, let's continue. So we are now with Paladin. And Paladin, I'm not gonna lie, I find it quite boring to play. Maybe in PvP it's a bit better. I think I'm going to put in C tier. The reason is that first and foremost, I'm not really a fan of healing in general, but I'm not that much of a fan as a Holy Paladin healing because a lot of the fun things for Holy Paladin kind of comes after vanilla, like in TBC or in Wrath of the Lich King. I do think that you can have a lot of fun in PvP because you have a lot of utility. It does feel like you can have a lot of utility with it, with Holy Paladin especially. I think Protection Paladin, you can kind of resume it with like kind of annoying, but again, I think it becomes a bit better in TPC as well. And Retribution Paladin, it is very slow. Like sometimes you can get a proc and it feels very great, but in PvE it is really not that good. Leveling wise, it is super slow. In PvP, you can actually have some fun if you have engineering and if you have your consumes, and you can be very obnoxious with it. But if you face like a good mage or a good, like even a warlock or a shadow priest, it becomes so much worse for you, man. And then you have the occasional warrior where you can actually stomp them, but even then, if it's an orc warrior, then Hajj is sometimes not going to happen. So I I do believe, again, I can be very biased. I don't really like vanilla classic Paladin. It becomes better in SOD, but in classic, it feels like it misses something. So, except if there is a change, I still think C tier is probably the right spot, and that's only the reason because I put it in PvP. Maybe in PvE raiding it could be fun, but again, I don't have a lot of experience on Holy Paladin raiding. I don't know how interactive it is. What I know, because I did play Retribution Paladin, what I know about Retribution Paladin is really boring. Like you're really just leeching out of everyone to get maybe a piece and then do PvP with it. And even in PvP, you're not that like accepted. But you could you can be a PvP hero. But the times whenever I was playing Paladin, it was not that enjoyable. So for me, it's going to be C tier, and let's going to pick up a bit of the pace. For me, I think enjoying Retribution Paladin is B tier, Protection Paladin is D tier. I don't like it because it doesn't have a taunt. As long as it doesn't have a taunt, it is really random. I guess C tier because I do like to dungeon with it. Dungeon Paladin, Protection Paladin is quite nice. And I would say Holy Paladin, let's say that is B tier because I frankly do not really know. What I know is that it doesn't have the Shokadin thing that you could have in TBC. You don't really have it in a classic. You can maybe kinda, but it's not as good as in TBC. In TBC, it becomes way more fun. But I'm going to put it in B tier. Not really that interested. Um, we'll see. This tier is really just a bonus. Like, just think about this one because again, you're playing a class. You're not playing a spec in vanilla. But I wanted to give you something extra, like that is different from other tier lists that you would like see on the internet. So I think that's a good thing to go for. So let's talk about priest. Priest is very fun whenever you're playing Shadow Priest. Raiding is, depending if you're like accepted, is not that fun, but it is also fun. I don't know if like debuff cap is gone in classic era because it will be the same as in classic era fresh. Hardcore it is gone though, so you could do mind flay without a problem. But I don't know how it works in classic era. I do think it's like the debuff is you have more debuffs. That is something I know, but I don't know if it's completely gone. And that can actually be a factor if you're going to have fun on it or not. So I don't remember. I didn't find some contradicting information. So we'll have to see if they are going to implement it or not on Fresh. Because to be fair, nobody's on Fresh yet, so we don't know what it truly is. Disc Priest is really fun, like a really fun PvP healer. Like it can deal damage. It's like dispelling like crazy. Fear is so strong into like a lot of specs and classes. And I think you're one of the best 1v1 like classes in the game. Leveling, it's cozy, although very boring. Like you're wanding most of the time. You can play Shadow Priest a bit more aggressive, but you're going to probably drink a bit more. Mind Blast hurts, so that's fun. Um, I'm going to put them at. I'm thinking about the other specs, guys, and classes. So don't like shoot me when I'm saying that, but I think it's a B tier for me because it's for me. It's a most fun. Like it's opinionated, guys. Like it's not science, right? But I do feel like I'm not really into priest too much. I'm first of all not that much on healing. Like I'm not like crazy on healing, but also Shadow Priest becomes really fun in TBC because you can also raid with it. You could like do way more with it. You can still do that as a Shadow Priest. I think the most fun thing going on for Shadow Priest is probably that it actually has some great PvP matchups and it is actually very fun and very strong. So that is the thing that makes me want to go B tier. But I would say rating wise, um, you have to heal most likely, and you will have to love healing. And personally, I'm not really a fan of healing. Even as the rest of the Druid, I just healed because I had to heal. Uh, and most fun came out whenever I was going for Balance Druid or Feral Druid. But I do love the PvP more on Druid than on Priest, so that's why it has actually a rating higher. So I'm going to put them at B tier. I would say Shadow Priest is A tier, Disc Priest is B tier, Holy Priest is C tier in my opinion. So that this is pretty much the way I go for the fun factor of these specs and classes. So then we have Rogue. Rogue is interesting. Rogue is very fun. In PvE, you have two specs pretty much. It is the dagger spec or you have the sword spec. So you have two options, obviously, and you can actually be in competition with a rogue without being in competition on weapons. So that's actually super nice. In PvP, I think there is nothing that can beat rogue like fun wise because you are the one of the stuff. You are the boogeyman. You are literally the one that is going to knock on the doors of other people. You're going to say, look, you cannot be AFK here because I'm going to destroy you. Or you just need to watch some videos from Peo whenever he's like having dumb fun in wetlands. And what other spec can actually, like what other class can actually beat that in general? I do feel like, again, leveling, it is interesting because you have stealth. I'm not gonna try to do too long about rogue. I think it is S tier. If you look for a real melee that is good in PvE, good at leveling, good at PvP, extremely needed in general. You are going to struggle with finding groups in dungeons, but you don't have to dungeon every single time. So for me, I do want to say that rogue is one of the better classes in the game. If fun is really something you want to go for. Again, I'm going to do a best PvP class and best PvE class tier list in the future, but right now I want to focus on the fun because that is the one thing that should be remembered on this video is choose your class based on fun, not based on performances. And I think right now you with rogue you kind of have everything, so that kind of helps. And then if you're thinking about fun like spec wise, subtlety is the most fun PvP spec in my opinion. Like having like a reset. Again, you can play a hybrid spec. Don't get me wrong. You play like I think 21, and then I think 7 or something like that, and then you put all the other points on your sub tree. You can do something like that, or you have more points in assassination, a bit less in combat. You at least want to have improved gouge. That's for sure that you want to have, and then the rest is bonus. And then you have obviously your your subtlety spec, which is going to give you the resets on your vanish, so you could have double vanish, and that's something that is very strong. And I do believe like that is seen as a sub rogue spec. I would say Hamo spec pretty much, where you're going for the big eviscerates, big kidney shots, your whole like stun lock duration, and trying to reset whenever you can. I think that is seen as a sub rogue to me. Then you have combat, which I find it fun in PvE, but in PvP a bit less. So that's why it's going to be A tier. I find assassination, that is the spec with 30 points into assassination and then the rest in combat and sub. That is a bit less interesting because you don't have a reset, but I do like the fact that you get like combo points out of critting, so that's quite good. So I'm gonna put it in A tier as well. But to be fair, rogue is a bit hard to judge because you only have really like two specs, one PvE and one PvP spec. You don't really have too many differences between them. Between the other specs, I would say, like going 30 points into assassination is like for really later on, and that's more of a like it's a greedy spec. You don't, I guess, you either don't have like improved gouge, or you don't have like your resets, so preparation. So I don't know, we'll have to see. Let's talk about Shaman. Shaman is, in my opinion, very fun, so I'm going to put it in A tier. Why? I do find you have enhancement Shaman that is very strong, you have your elemental Shaman that is very strong, and restoration Shaman is actually also quite strong. And I'm talking about PvP here. In PvE though, enhancement Shaman is a meme. That's true, it is what it is. Elemental Shaman is kind of a meme, you can perform on it, but mana is the issue. It's not that great, but it's there. And then you have restoration Shaman, which is probably what everyone needs you to be. You will always need a Shaman in your raids, so that's good, I guess. You will always have a spot, and you could maybe probably raid as an enhancement or elemental Shaman if they really need a Shaman, and you can just say, look, I want to play just that and that's it. You could do that. But I do find like PvP wise, it's the one thing that makes me want to put it in A tier, because enhancement Shaman, two-handed Wind Fury is really great. You could also you can level as elemental Shaman or enhancement Shaman in classic without a problem. You have mana issues, but that is regardless of spec. You always have mana issues anyways, and I think it's flavorful for me, like the totem quests, those enchantments that you can have. Again, if you're playing retail, for example, in enhancement Shaman, you will see you only have Wind Fury and Flame Tongue. Here at least you have like multiple options. You have Rock Bite, you have the Frostband, you have multiple options that you can go for, so that's what I like about Shaman in general. So for me, A tier. And if I have to count about what is the most fun in PvP, I would say enhancement Shaman is not as fun as you would think, because of that you have mana issues, and you need to proc your Wind Fury. If you do proc Wind Fury every single time, then you're S tier, like no contest. But sometimes it will not proc for you, and it is what it is. But if you're facing a mage and you do one Wind Fury proc, that guy is just deleted. And that's something very satisfying to me. And elemental Shaman, I think it's very fun because you're deleting people. I think like everyone has PTSD still about like elemental Shaman, and I think a lot of people are going to run elemental Shaman this time around because they already seen like the potential it had in 2019. And restoration Shaman, having not played it, I don't really know too much, so I'm going to put it in B tier. So please fill me in, is it fun or not? But the truth is, if I was playing Shaman, I would be playing enhancement Shaman or elemental Shaman. So that's why I cannot really rate restoration Shaman, because I would not really play that anyways. Warlock. So Warlock is for me very, very fun. You will see a lot of A tiers, guys, I'm sorry, but it's very fun, very flavorful. Demons, the specs that you can play. I think PvE, it has the same problem as Mage. You're kind of press only Shadow Bolt. If the debuff cap is gone, then you can get more dots, and that can be very fun. But I think right now I do rate Warlock A tier because in PvP it is really strong, it's very flavorful, can summon people. That's something you maybe not like, but if you have friends and they are lazy, you can actually just summon them, that's cool. You'll always be like invited in your raids, dungeons. You're very liked as well. I personally really like Warlock, and I'm very biased towards it because I main Warlock even in retail. Like I really like that class. I'm not putting it S tier because I know the difficulties it can have sometimes in raids, and it's not as fun as before. As for example, hunters. Like the contrary to Hunter, Hunter is very dynamic. Warlock is not dynamic in raids, but in PvP you have a lot of like intricacies that makes you able to win versus everyone, even versus rogues. Although again, it's not as easy and clear cut, but at least they don't have Cloak of Shadows, so whenever you're doing a Mortal Coil, it actually does a lot. So I do like Warlock. Yeah, Affliction Warlock very fun, Destruction Warlock very fun, and I find Demonology Warlock kind of it doesn't really have an identity in Classic. That's why it becomes better in TBC and Wrath of the Lich King. But if I have to choose, Demonology Warlock is probably D tier because it has no identity. And then I'm thinking Destruction Warlock and Affliction Warlock would be something like that. I like Destruction Warlock because it kind of reminds me of the good old days PvP montage videos. And Affliction Warlock, I really like rotting people down. That's kind of like it's kind of funny PvP. And in PvE, again, those two are like kind of hybrid specs anyways with Demonology Warlock. So I actually you hybrid spec Demonology Warlock with Destruction Warlock because I don't see it as Demonology Warlock. I do see it as a Destruction Warlock in general. So yeah, I think that's a good point for Warlock. And then we have our last spec. I truly think there is no D tier, so I'm going to remove it. I do feel like Warrior is probably the hero class of Classic. Like in PvP, it feels very cool, very nice. In PvE, it is very strong, man. Whenever you have your buffs and you're going in and you have your gear, it feels like wonderful. Uh, like having spoken to a lot of warriors, they never seem to regret their pick. Except in PvP, whenever they're doing a 1v1, it seems like they don't like that. But it's not made for that. I think warrior with a healer behind them, it's a killing machine. Like literally PvP montage videos is like born out of that. Like if you're thinking about Pat, Maydai, or whatever you see like on the internet, even Swifty, like whenever they're doing like BG videos, they had like always a heal bot next to them, and they were like feeling like killing machines because they were literally killing machines. In PvP, you could also 1v1 everyone because of engineering or your consumes, but it's not as clear cut. But if I'm thinking about leveling, it is like the OG Classic feeling. If I'm thinking about the PvP, it feels like again you're going to put some Rammstein or Soil, whatever you're going to listen, and it's going to be still awesome. If you're doing PvE, you're the hero class. You're the one that is really liked by everyone and needed by everyone. Gearing is a bit complicated because you have to share with everyone, but that's another issue. That's not really with the fun factor. It's just annoying. Like it is what it is. But I think the whole thing around Warrior is that it is a needed class in Classic. You want him for tank, you want him for DPS, you have Fury spec, you have Arm spec, you have even Protection Warrior spec, you can even Fury tank if you want to. And that's something that is actually very, very neat. So, if I have to think, Arms Warrior is for me S tier fun, Mortal Strike, iconic, very strong APGs, very strong in 1v1s. If you can actually like touch someone, it can actually deal a lot of damage. If you have gear, it becomes way more fun as well. I would say no gear Arms Warrior, D tier, geared Arms Warrior with a healer, S tier. Fury Warrior, I would say in PvE most likely, but also just in general, if you're thinking about Swifty, he played Fury. It was actually very fun as well. And Protection Warrior, I actually like the spec, so I'm going to put him at S tier. So this is my tier list for fun. So again, check it out. This is the spec tier list. And this is the class tier list. And truly, it kind of shows that I'm really a hunter druid main. It kind of shows that I really hesitate between rogue, warrior, warlock, and those two other specs. I do not hesitate shaman because I want to play alliance. And mage is, again, I don't want to regret. I don't want to go regret in raids and having to press frostbolt every single time for every encounter. You have that for warlock as well with shadowbolt, but it's a bit different, right? But anyways, Thank you for watching this video. Really appreciate you. Hopefully you did learn something. Hopefully you did enjoy something. Hopefully you get excited for Fresh, because I am super excited for Fresh. So hopefully we do make more videos about it. Please let me know in the comment section below what you want to see next. And have a great day. Bye.